Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Trey's Tabletop Crossrip. I am Trey, screen name Ghostbuster LML III. We got a special episode this evening. We are on location at Dogmud Tavern in Ridgeland, Mississippi. This is the tavern that's been opened by the guys at Certifiable Studios, and it's a fun place. We're gonna have there's gonna be a separate video, kind of a walkthrough of everything that's here. But this video is all about their new game that is currently on Kickstarter right now called Alter Ego. So this is a resource management dexterity game, and these are the prototype pieces that they let us come over and play with. And so I'm just going to kind of give you an overview of the game, let you see what they're thinking about materials and stuff like that, so that hopefully if you take a look at it and you haven't backed it on Kickstarter yet, you'll give it a shot. So, like I said, this is a resource management dexterity game that is controlled by dice to get your people to build your altars. The whole purpose of the game is to have the greatest altar. Now that's not to be confused. If you kind of zoom in here, you can see that there are meeples, or will be meeples, inside the altar. So it's not the highest altar, it's the greatest altar. So each level you have on your altar, when you start the game, each player starts with one level automatically. Each level is worth a point. Each meeple within the altar is also worth a point. So for a total, this would be a 6-point altar. If you come to this one over here, this is also a 6-point altar, even though the meeples are in a different location. I'll get to why they're in a different location here in a minute. So it's a 2 to 4 player game. You start with one level each. This is kind of just set up so we can show the different pieces. However many players you have, you pick that many yellow die, and then add the divinity die. And I think this is going to be blue in the final version. Right now their prototype is red. But for sake, this is set up for 4. So in that case, you would take all 4 yellow die, you would take the divinity die, and you would roll them. Take turns being the first player. Now, if you rolled, you are the first player for that round. You get first choice of the die, and these die are the different people that can join your village. So the pitchfork is the farmer, the shepherd's crook, and then the pickaxe is the worker. The beads are the worshippers, and I'll find it here momentarily. The helmet, that's with a worker, but the helmet is your army. So if this die were to be rolled like that and you chose that one, you actually get 2. You get the worker plus the soldier. The divinity die has multiple things like that would be a worker and a worshipper. But then it has other events, such as the bare limb is the famine. If you don't have a farmer, the famine's going to hurt you. The quill is to write the scroll of your altar. And then the divine hammer, if you take this one, instead of taking a worker, if you take the divine hammer, you get to automatically just build one level onto your altar. If no one takes the divine hammer, because for whatever reason they decided they wanted these workers instead to do stuff on their board, if this is left at the end of the round, the person with the greatest altar is smited because he did not take the gift of the gods. He must take the highest level from his altar and put it on the lowest altar. And sorry, I said highest, but it's actually greatest. The greatest altar, and put it on the lowest altar. So that's kind of an overview of the pieces. I'll give you an overview of the board. So, here in Amity, all the boards are laid out the same. You've got different flavor text, different village names, but all of them work the same. So over here is your soldier general. You have to have both a soldier and a general to do anything with your army. Just having one isn't enough. The farmer will protect you from famine, or will give you the ability of any of the red ones that you don't have if you were to use him. But then if you use him, you would be exposed if the famine die comes up next. These are your worker locations. You have to start by going to 1. Then, once you have this guy, you can either spend him to build 1 level on your own tower, or hold him for a future round. If you get a worker in the next round, you put that worker here, and then you could use him to build 2 levels on your own tower. Once you get it going, you would leave both of those guys here, hoping for a 3rd worker. Once you get the 3rd worker, he goes in the tower. So instead of being placed on the board, there's not a punch out here and it's a yellow space. he would automatically move from here into your tower. The worshippers on the die, they got to start up here, just like the shepherds. The worshippers start up here, and then you can direct them to either become an evangelist or a monk. The evangelist let you gain the benefit of any of the rolled die, even if it's not one that you chose or one that was already chosen. The monk will take the scrolls to help write your story. The monks would leave the village and join the temple. The temple is separate from your village, and that's something I've talked to Jesse about. These do not count as villagers because it is separate and apart. Once you have 3 monks who have written with their quills, you can end the game at the end of your turn when it is your choice to do so. You would fill this up, and then at the end of your turn, you take all 3 of them off, and it would trigger the end of the game. So obviously, you could have that ready, and then once you know you have the greatest altar, you could end the game at that time. So then finally, shepherds over here. You start with the shepherd, and then you can direct the shepherd to either the lamb pasture or the cow pasture. The lamb pasture is to offer a sacrificial lamb to move a worker from the lowest space up the tower, up the altar to the next available space. And you need to get them out of the way because of number 3 here. The cow pasture would let you change a die roll. So, your whole purpose, build the tower and get the guys in there to make it the greatest altar. How the gameplay on the thing works, and you see the different colors, is that the way Certifiable has explained it is kind of like a light system. Green, yellow, red. However, the way it's set up, you can only do 1 action in addition to drafting the die. So, the green actions can be taken by you on your turn before you select which die and then which person you are going to then put into your village. So, if there's a worshiper out here and you've got this guy here, before you choose the worshiper here, you can go ahead and move this guy down to monk. Then you would take the worshiper and set the new guy here. Now, if you take a green action, an influence action, before you select the die, after you select the die and you put him in here, that's the end of your turn. If you do not do a green action, you select your die first, say, I'm going to take this farmer, and I would put him here. Having not influenced, I can now direct. Direct are the red actions. The red actions take place after you take your worker, and you would then do it. So I could direct the farmer to then do something that is not currently filled. So I could then use the farmer to take the lamb pasture action and move this worker up a level. The yellow actions are, the yellow spaces are not actions that count against you. They're things that happen automatically as soon as the event is triggered. So if I have 2 workers here and I take a worker, this guy would be number 3. He automatically goes to the first spot on the tower. Here's the problem with that. As this tower is currently built, as you can see, there is a worker already on the first place. He cannot jump. Worker number 3, the slave driver, must go to the first space. So if I have not used the lamb pasture to move this meeple up a level, this now creates a problem. This guy has nowhere to go, and he is now mad at you. He turns to an infidel. The infidel leaves your village to go join the village with the greatest altar. So in this situation, it would be the one here on my right. When he leaves, he is going to build on the greatest altar. And how much you build depends on where this board member has his workers. Right now you can see he has workers, he has 1 but not 2. So in this situation, he's created the infidel in Amity. This guy so the Amity player has to build 1 level onto this altar. And again, if he knocks it over, this player wins. If, for sake of argument, there were 2 workers here, 2 levels must be built on that. So just because you got the first one built doesn't mean you're in the clear, because then you got to build number 2. So, how do you trigger the end game other than the temple? You trigger the end game by knocking over your own tower or knocking over someone else's tower. If you knock over your own altar, you trigger the end of the game, and the person with the greatest altar still standing wins. If, however, you knock over someone else's altar, that person wins the game immediately, whether they had the greatest altar or not. So, it's a lot of fun. We've played it several times over the past 2 days, and I hope to play it a couple more before we have to go back to Texas. Again, these are the prototype pieces. I think they've got ideas for sprucing up the altars a little bit if they make it to stretch goals. Would love to see that. Again, the guys at Certifiable have been very, very gracious, very accommodating. We appreciate everything they've done and brought us out here for. We will show y'all Dogmud Tavern in a separate video, and hope you enjoy that. If you've got any questions, feel free to post them below and reach out. Let us know if you've got questions. I'd be happy to answer those about the game. Because like I said, we played it several times. Oh, you know what? I do apologize. There was one thing I did fail to mention. We'll zoom down here. This is just a prototype piece, so don't necessarily take it as a temple. It's not a temple. This is the region's side temple. If a quill is rolled, but no one takes it, if no player has a monk that can take it to then move to their specific temple, it goes in here to the middle. Once there are 3, that will trigger the end of the game. So that's just another way that it ends, and I apologize for missing that. But again, if you got any questions, feel free to post them below. We'll be happy to answer those. Thanks for watching.